6 o'clock, straight up.
I'd like to call this meeting of the PNC Board to order. Tammy, City Clerk, would you like to take the roll call?
Okay. Mr. Jerkins?
Here.
Mr. Elzey?
Here.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Here.
Mr. Crease?
Here.
Mr. Lunderman?
Here.
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Mr. I'm sorry, Ms. Garner? Here. Okay.
All right, so the first item would be the minutes of the April 3rd meeting. And I'd like to thank Mr. Elzey. I understand that you led that meeting, and it was my 60th birthday where I had my kids on a vacation with me out of the country, so appreciate you enjoyed it taking over. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any questions, or do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second.
You can just do that by calling it out. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So that approves. Next, we have really the only item on the consent agenda tonight, so the variance request.
Before you bring that up, I'm going to recuse myself from any discussion on the agenda going forward,
Okay. So does
Do you have a conflict?
because there could be a possible conflict.
Okay. So we'll,
So should this come to a vote, is there an
no,
alternate?
he doesn't, you don't have to vote on it, just.
No, should it come to a vote? Is there an
He's not-
alternate that's in his place?
Yes, we want to put the alternate in the place of Rock.
Okay. All right.
That would be Mr. Cox. Mr. Cox should be a voting member during this item.
All right, so this item is for a variance request to 138 Canal Parkway. Just a brief summary here. This is for a front setback variance. Request for a 4.2 foot variance and a 20-foot front setback, resulting in a 15.8 foot setback on the structure currently constructed at this location. So I think first we begin with city staff.
Well, let me just go ahead and say a few things. We're going to do this meeting a little bit different tonight. It's going to be what's known as a quasi-judicial meeting, meaning the city staff who stand up and give testimony will be under oath, as well as the applicant and any witnesses that he brings. At this time, I'm going to ask if there's anybody else in the audience who is adversely affected by this particular decision that's going to be made tonight. And when I say adversely affected, I mean, are you a neighbor? You live on the same street? Or are you just, it's got to be more than you're just a citizen of Mexico Beach and a member of the public at large. Is there anyone? Okay. When I'm going to have Tammy call the roll, take the oath. So city staff is going to talk, the applicant, any witnesses that he has, and any of those adverse affected parties that are going to give testimony tonight need to stand and take the oath.
Clint, not the board.
No, not you guys.
Okay, guys, if you will raise your right hand and repeat after me. I solemnly swear to tell the truth.
Solemnly swear to tell the truth,
The whole truth.
the whole truth,
And nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Next thing that we need to do is if any of the particular board members here tonight has had any ex parte communications with someone regarding this, you need to disclose it and state the nature of what that communication was.
So Clint, even as an alternate,
Are you, you're,
I'm not a voting member tonight.
yeah, you don't.
Okay.
So I'd like to disclose that I had a conversation with Councilman Adrian Welly about this matter. It was a brief conversation of that specific nature.
Okay.
So I've spoke to 3 people. I spoke to Mr. Welly asking, based on his past experience as a city clerk, if this had happened before. I spoke to Mr. Manning and Mr. Baber for clarification on some of the ordinances and rules of the city.
Okay.
Do we need to disclose if we spoke to staff?
Not necessarily, it's not necessary, no.
Okay.
Is that it? Okay,
Sounds like it.
it's up to the city staff.
So, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I would bring up Carly from the Planning Collaborative to start the public discussion, but we'll go through city staff and then the applicant before we get to public comment.
Carly.
Just to again go through my staff report, this is an applicant for a front setback variance located at 138 Canal Parkway. Also, just for the record, my name is Carly Hansen. I'm a professional planner working for the Planning Collaborative. This request is for a 4.2-foot variance in the 20-foot front setback, resulting in a 15.8-foot setback. The structure is currently constructed at this location. The Planning Collaborative has received this variance application and reviewed the documents against the City Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code. Both documents are silent on the process and review criteria for this issuing of a variance. As a result, the city must include a finding of fact in their approval to approve or deny this request. However, we cannot make a recommendation to do either.
Now, anyone of the commission can ask her questions. Also, the applicant and any of the adversely affected people can ask her questions.
Question.
Yes.
It may have been in here, but when was this variance applied for?
They submitted the documents to the city on 5/10/23, so May 10th. So
And when was the structure completed, or if a CO's been granted?
I don't have that information.
The CO has not been granted. They cannot do that until this situation is resolved.
Okay. Any other questions?
I
Carly?
have a question.
Did she need
I understand.
approach?
Yeah, you should come
Oh,
on
I'm
up.
sorry. And just state your name as you come.
Okay.
And you are under oath. Just
Yes.
keep in mind.
My name is Bonnie Paulson, and I live at 118 Canal Parkway. And I understand that there had to have been a permit, there had to have been inspections, and there had to have been setback rules, and yet it was constructed anyway, and they only just found out, the city only just found out. And I think somebody should be accountable for this. It's not fair to the rest of us that live on that street unless everybody gets a variance from the setback, which I think is fair. Gee, I'm nervous, I'm not used to public speaking. Y'all smile at me. I applied for a variance 2.5 years ago when my husband was dying of COVID. And that was kind of his last wish, to have a deck put on the front of my house. And I was turned down. And at that meeting, the gentleman said they turned down a handicapped man because he was a foot over or half a foot over, and he needed it for his wheelchair. So,
Ma'am, I don't want to make this as efficient as possible. This is your chance to ask her questions,
Oh.
cross-examine her.
Oh.
You will have a chance to come up and give
Oh.
whatever
Oh, I
speech
didn't
later
know
on.
that.
And I'm sorry, I should
no,
have
that's
told you
okay.
that.
No, I'm a layman, so. So, is it possible for them to cut the building down and get rid of that 5+ feet over?
I think that's a better question for the applicant. I only received the variance application after the fact that the city was submitted to.
Then do you know who made all of these mistakes?
No, I do not.
So you can't hold anybody accountable for it?
I just reviewed the variance application.
Okay.
I believe more will come out as it goes further. You may want to hold your questions.
Cool. Well, this is fun, you guys. Thank you. I'm done.
I do have a question for Carly.
Yes.
So I know that the staff said that the comp plan and that LDC don't address this specifically. What about the Florida statutes? Is there anything that addresses this sort of thing in the statutes that might apply?
It is common for cities to have their own criteria for review for issues such as a variance. And you'll see it in the application package, which the application is an older application. We haven't redeveloped it yet. It does have listed a standard of review criteria. However, those are no longer in the Mexico Beach Land Development Code, so they can't be used to evaluate this request.
Okay, are there any limitations by the Florida statutes on how we proceed? And I'm to the extreme of denying it and forcing them to tear the building down, to approving it with no repercussions or fines. Is there anything in the Florida statutes that would
I
apply to this?
haven't reviewed that.
But you have to base your decision on factual basis.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And testimony, and evidence. But evidence can be testimony, evidence can be documents,
Yep. Okay, thank you.
and you're allowed to make your own determination as a member of the board.
Is that all from city staff?
I don't know, is that all from city staff?
No, we have the applicant, unless, then she has a question for Carly, we have the applicant.
Okay, got it.
Karen Wolf, 130 Canal Parkway. Does your legal counsel review other possible governing documents like the Florida statute to see to what extent it may be applicable to this situation?
That's a better question for our legal counsel.
Oh, I didn't know if legal counsel is here, so.
The only thing that would be applicable would be us following this quasi-judicial procedure. The city can set its own
Right.
setback rules and stuff like that.
So the Florida statute in and of itself doesn't have any governing?
It dictates how this is done in this particular setting right now.
Okay, yeah, I did a quick Google, and needless to say, so I was actually wondering what applicability, if any, would be there, and it's just relief from burdens on real property rights, and I wasn't sure. I just didn't know if there would be applicability back kind of to what Bonnie, I think you might have asked maybe, or someone was talking about. So that was just looking for some help with the governance on how this is done.
Yeah, the city can grant a variance if they base it on factual information.
Okay, thank you.
It is elicited from evidence, and evidence can be documentation and testimony.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is Greg, he's our building official for EPCI.
So before we get into the, I thought it might be helpful to address some of your questions. So, yes, you are correct. An application was submitted. The initial survey was found to be an inappropriate setback and was rejected. 2 days later, we got a new survey with the proper setbacks on it, okay? The development order application says on it what we need as they build. We got that information very late, and when we did, we actually identified that at this time. The building department was the one that pointed out to Mr. Smith that we were not where we should be. And we did that as soon as we got the information that we require. So I wanted to point out to anyone who had that question that we do monitor these things very, very tightly. We have checks and balances in place, but even with that, things do go awry sometimes. So that's really all I had to say. We have a timeline of those documents when they were submitted, when we got them, when we changed things. That's all documented. We have that. And so that, I hope that answers your question, or at least helps with you.
Apparently, that's a second case where that's happened because Drew Anthony down the street.
And you're correct. So after the first one, we increased the requirements and the things that we do to try to mitigate this. But even with that, we will never take human error out of an equation as much as we try. So every time something like this comes up, and this one came up, we revisit it. What are we doing? How can we do it better? How did this happen? All through the thing, and so the applicant's going to tell you, I believe, I don't know that, but what happened on his end or how we got here. But when you ask questions about permits and whatnot, I thought I might be the best one to address that process. So that's.
Seems to be the way business is done.
Ma'am?
Seems to be the way business is done. Everything's okay, and then at the end.
No, we actually stopped 3 times last week. we do stay in the community. I personally respond to complaints about all kinds of things. And so we do the best we can, but we have to, it is impossible for any jurisdiction to micromanage every single construction site. The responsibility lies on the surveyors, the engineers, and the contractor. But we do the best we can, and we do have some stringent requirements here that we do our best to enforce. So, yes, sir.
I'd just like to know that, because I just recently got a CO and moved in, so the inspection process, was this not identified at the foundation or in this case the pilings?
So here's what happened, yes. And as soon as we identify that, once we get that from a surveyor, okay, so our inspector is not out there locating pins.
Understood.
He's not qualified to do that, and we're not licensed to do that, for the liability that would cause if we made a mistake. So we require a second survey. So you tell us where you want to build the house, we double check it, make sure it fits the LDR. Once you start construction, you send us a second survey where a surveyor says, yes, this is exactly where this house is. We did not get that information until we were over the hurdles, okay? So we have made changes since that point. And the first contractor that we asked to do this didn't like it very much, but it's where we're headed. So the contractor will be, and again, we're not the ones locating the pins, but he's there with the surveyor, pulling strings on these pins, and we will physically measure ourselves. Although you have a licensed surveyor, the surveyor's the best way to go, that's all he does. But I did 3 week before last time, we started this, okay? So we're doing everything we can on the front end to combat this, but it's construction, things do happen. I know that's not an answer anyone wants to hear.
And I think you'll hear more when you hear from the applicant. I think that'll help you kind of, before you go too far down
I just
the
want
road.
clarification on one of your comments. You
Yes.
used the term "over the hurdles." Can you define what that means? You said we did not receive the second survey until we were over.
The progress of the structure was already such that we were already there.
Okay.
We were already where we are now. So it becomes a decision, are we going to tear it down or are we not? I don't.
So we were already vertical at the point.
We
You
were already
received a
vertical.
second survey is what you mean when you
Yes,
said over
yes,
the hurdle.
actually, I'm sorry.
Complete.
That's okay. Thank you for clarifying.
So Lance Watson's here on behalf of the applicant. The applicant's also here, Mike Smith.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Lance Watson from Southeastern Consulting Engineers. So I was the engineer on this project originally, and as has been mentioned so far, the original survey, and really all the way through, the survey showed a 15-foot record plat setback, and that was incorrect. So we had them add the 20-foot LDR setback. So because it's a record plat, the site plan was submitted, and you also have it in your packet, and I've got some extras if anybody wants one, but the site plan was submitted, still, because we can't take paint all surveys when we overlay on site plan, but it still showed the 15-foot plat setback, but it also showed the 20-foot setback in the plan that setback, so that's how they got the permit. And so, also, like they said, so before you get to the point of getting the survey, once the foundation's in, you have the surveyor come out and they state the setback line and that building location. Well, the 15-foot record plat setback, unknowing to Mike and all the folks at Gulf Building Company, was it was set at the 15-foot setback. And it's not visually easy. You can't just, because you're not 15 feet off the road, you're 15 feet off the property line. So there's no way to look and say, oh, I'm 4.2 feet off, I think, and let's go check it out. So that's kind of how it happened. It was an honest mistake. Mike's been building for over 40 years. I know the staff and the building department, certainly EPCI, is very familiar with Mike and his work. This has never happened to him before. It's happened, from what I hear today, it sounds like the second time it's happened in Mexico Beach, and I don't know how many hundreds of permits have gone through the building department since Hurricane Michael, but, so the city combats this very well, and obviously human error, humans make mistakes, this was an honest mistake. I personally worked with Mike the last 12 years, engineering drawings, and never had a hiccup, never had an issue. And when the survey came in, like you mentioned, the survey, and this is every construction project, surveyors are behind. You do 100 projects that go perfect, you get the survey, it's a checkbox for the contractor, let's get this foundation survey, but we can't hold the framers up while we wait 3 months on it to get back. And hundreds of projects, they've never had any issues, they have no reason to believe that this was staked out incorrectly, and that's why the survey came further down the line of construction. But in the end, I mean, this is literally the first time this has ever happened to Mike and Gulf Building Company in 40 years of business, and it was a 100% honest mistake. And having 2 setbacks on the survey is essentially what caused the issue. It was a mistake on the stakeout in the beginning, and it wasn't caught until it was too far. Now we have a fully constructed building that is 4.2 feet into the front setback.
But Lance, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, did they build a 4.2 square foot bigger house on all 3 floors, or did they
the same
build it in
house,
the wrong
and
spot?
this house, and if you look at you can even see it on the as-built survey that was submitted with the packet. The porches are on the Gulf side and the opposite of the road. Your views are better in the back. This building would have served a better purpose 5 feet further off the road. Your views will be better if anybody builds, because there is a lot next to him on the Gulf side, your views will be better. There's literally no reason to want to be closer to the road. Your views are obstructed when somebody else builds beside you. There's no benefit to doing this.
But it had a 20-foot setback in the back is what I was asking.
10 foot in the back.
10 foot in the back. He could have had smaller or larger than what he currently has.
He could have had much larger house. Even if he met the 20-foot setback, he could have had a much larger house. It's high density residential, 50% impervious, so he could have had a much larger house, even if he was 4.2 more feet off the road.
Lance, do you have a copy of those? Because we don't have the site plans in our packet.
I brought some extra stuff, and I've only got 4. But the first
not
one,
voting.
We can share.
the first one is the original survey.
This will be admitted to evidence.
Okay.
The first one, and I don't have a copy, so I'm going off memory, but the first one's the original survey. The second page is the as-built survey as it currently sits. And then the rest of the pages are the design plans.
So he cost himself some parking in the front. Is that right? He could
Uh,
add more parks?
Yeah.
Okay. And the house is the exact same size, he didn't like increase.
That house is exactly.
He didn't reduce the setback and build a bigger house.
Right.
That's what
And
I
as you can see on the back, there's plenty of room to move it back. The house wasn't any bigger than the plan drawings. And you can look at the dimensions on the plan itself. And you would have, when someone builds to the southwest of him, south, I guess, his views will be much better being 5 feet back. And so, I mean, there's no benefit to making this mistake on purpose.
Excuse me, is there a lot to the south?
There is.
It's a St.
He's
Joe
not,
lot.
he's not the Gulf
St.
Front
Joe
lot.
property.
I think there may be one more lot in this St. Joe property, or maybe
No,
St.
he's
Joe
the
property.
final lot on Canal Parkway.
But if it's St. Joe property, there will be multiple lots at some point.
I thought he was the last one.
No, it's a,
Sorry.
it's part of the PUD.
I guess what I'm asking is, there are no more lots available.
If St. Joe company owns it, there will be.
In the back.
Right, to the east, right?
Yeah, but.
I mean, I'm sorry, to the
Canal
west.
Parkway
Yeah.
along the road are, what, 3 or 4 empty
lots.
Yeah, but I think my understanding was the same, you can't build any
You ladies-
further to the Gulf.
That's the last lot.
Mr. Chair, you got,
You-
just get those people to come to the front.
You can ask him any question you want.
Oh. Okay, for clarification, is there another lot between that home and the Gulf lot?
There is a parcel. So yeah, it's a lot, it's a big lot, but it's a parcel, yes.
And that's the one that board member St. Joe you said or whatever.
Right.
Is it one that could be built on?
It could be built on it or subdivided.
If you can picture the city's parking lot that I got a lease from St. Joe from, all that is part of that parcel. That parking lot is not ours on that side, on the west side of the road.
Does that answer your
Yes,
question?
I mean, there's multi-hundred unit development St. Joe just developed, so they're known to subdivide. So I mean, it could happen, and even if it didn't happen, there's no reason to lessen your parking and increase your backyard in this scenario on purpose.
Yeah, so I guess on the clarification, my understanding was what is immediately west of us is St. Joe, and certainly this place
That's
would be
correct.
developed. We were out here whenever that was, when all those meetings were taking place. I wasn't aware that anything further to the Gulf side could be built on, but I knew in its predominance, they had a lot of that land. So to the extent of blocked views or anything like that by where the house is placed, is it a proper understanding that any home further landward from 138, it will certainly have a domino effect from the 4.2 feet variance? It's going to block to some degree anyone with balconies or anything on the front of their homes. If they're set back at 20 and he's up at 15 or whatever.
From the front, it may block, well, she owns the lot next door to it, so, correct? So anything would be 2 lots down. At that point, 5 feet is minuscule, but yeah, it may block the parking lot, but it wouldn't block the ocean view from the front, and then the view would be better from the back.
Depending on what St. Joe does on the back.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, it's a valid point.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's speculative, but thank you for the answer. Yeah, so there, from what you're saying though, I think the homes where we are and anyone else is going down, even where Bonnie is, anything that is landward of that home on Canal Parkway, it could have a domino effect on that setback where everybody else may, to have the best view and best location, may want the opportunity to have the same consideration, that same variance if it were granted.
Correct.
Just so that they're not obstructed with any view that they may want if it were to obstruct, depending on where their house sits, if it were to obstruct a view of a boat coming in or the canal or whatever it is. You know, in our case, our plans have balconies on the front and the back.
Right.
So that would be a concern for me with the variance if it weren't granted for everybody.
Right, I understand that, and it's just to talk about the difference in view, because there is a parcel that is not built on, and maybe more, that have to meet this setback. So when you get 4 or 5 parcels down, this 4.2 feet is, I mean, very, very, very minute on the view loss of something when you're 300 feet away, and something's 4.2 feet to your left. I mean, that's, from a view standpoint, it's very, very minor. From I understand your point from a, why can't we do this standpoint? And so that's why I'm stressing the point that, I mean, this was a 100% honest mistake. Mike has never come out, Mike's built hundreds of houses, we designed tons and tons, dozens and dozens and dozens for him. This has never happened. Nothing, there's never been any issues.
Right. And just for the domino effect of it, and I heard what you said, the next lot is owned by the same party, but of course they can always sell it and let someone else put that one for sale, just like the 138 is for sale, 136 may be for sale. I mean, at some point, everything changes hands.
Right.
So I would hope that the same opportunity that 138 may receive is granted. And if it's granted for 138, the same should hold for everybody else.
That's a question.
Yeah, let's go ahead and
Yeah,
resolve
that's-
138 and then move
Right.
to other situations after that. So is that all the questions for
Any more
Lance?
questions?
Can the audience ask?
Not at this time.
Okay.
You're up, Mike.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Mike Smith. I did the pilings on the job. I did the bill on the job. I'm the one that is responsible, 100%. So,
Does anybody have any questions for Mike?
I do. I heard that the survey was received really late in the game. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on
yeah.
how this
absolutely.
happened?
So I did the pilings. We started the framing. I didn't know that I needed a survey till after the fact that we needed the final survey.
So how was this different than the typical build that you've done for these before?
Typical bill, like if we were under DEP permit, that would be a requirement. And then we would send that survey into the state, and then they would have 10 days to respond. And on the paperwork that I got from Mexico Beach, it didn't state in there that I needed a survey after we did the pilings before we started framing on the checkoff list. So that's why I did call for a survey. And there was no reason at all to think that we were an inch off of the survey. Nothing stood out whatsoever. In fact, there was only a quarter of the pavement or the road there when we were doing the project. So nothing stood out.
I don't know who to ask the question to. I've heard two different things about surveys, or not exactly the same about surveys. And I'm not doubting anything that you say. You said that you didn't know about it. So at what point, how did you find out about it?
Sure. So I turned in the final survey, and maybe it was a couple more pieces of paper to get my final on the house. And when I turned it all in, it was either that day or the next day, Greg had called me and said, Mike, do you see that you're at 15 foot on your front setback instead of 20 foot? That's what started all this. And I'm like, no, I don't. But let me go and start digging in emails and find out what's going on, if anything's going on. And probably 2 or 3 hours after that is when I called them back and said, yeah, it looks like the wrong site plan was sent to the surveyors. So that's where all that come into effect.
So, Mr. Smith, when did you find out there was a requirement for a second survey?
It was on the application that I got from the city.
The initial application?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Mr. Smith, when did the city issue the permit for this job?
I don't have that answer for you. I can dig up and get the answer for you.
I mean, it doesn't have to be an exact date. I
A
mean,
year
was
ago.
it a year
I would
ago?
say it was either April or March of last year. I think we were doing the pilings about March.
Greg, do you have that information?
March 14th.
March 14th, permits were issued.
So is it your contention that there was a systematic failure on the part of ECPI at this
No.
point?
No.
So
It all,
I'm still a little confused as to how you are unaware that a second survey was required if that's a normal part of the process.
well, maybe
Or have I misunderstood?
if it was a normal part of the process, it's a normal part of our process that we're under DEP permit. And then we didn't have to have a DEP permit on this particular job.
Okay. Something didn't quite clarify how that
And I
mistake
didn't,
is.
it might be on the paperwork that I got from the city, I didn't see it on there.
Greg, is there something about the boundary survey that was required?
Yes, sir. I only have one of these. I didn't think to make copies. This is the actual document dated 3/11/2022. I'll draw your attention to this here, and the signature pages on the back, if you'd like to see it. That's on every development order that we send out.
What's the date on it?
March 11th, 22. So if you remember, we added that boundary survey in to kind of help control this from happening. After that, we cut off a foot of that person's house. That was an option. So that's where that started.
So, just one more question.
Yes, sir.
Southeastern did the survey?
No, sir. I'm sure we did that. Roddenberry did. Yeah. Survey.
So I just want to clarify, when you started your build, this was the document you went by?
Yes, sir, can I say that?
Yeah.
Development order.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's my signature on that. Yes, sir. Anything that's happened from start to finish is my fault. I take 100% responsibility for it. But it's very unusual because I'm on the job every day.
So
And I laid this foundation out myself.
two more questions. Is this the first home you've built in Mexico Beach?
No, sir.
And what recourse do you have if the variance isn't approved?
I hadn't got to that point yet.
Okay, you wouldn't want to tear the house down. That's not, you know, you can't move it, can you?
Cannot move it, no, sir.
Yeah, all right. And is it practical to cut 4.2 feet off the front of it?
No, sir. Not practical at all.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smith, I have a
Go back.
question if I could.
Right.
What setback are you accustomed to on properties? But I guess, is Canal Parkway different than other homes in Mexico Beach?
I think all the contracts, yes, ma'am.
All the setbacks you're talking
That's,
about?
I have to get everything out, look at it, look at it.
Lance, you stated something about the plat. Yeah, plat book shows 15 feet.
The survey showed a record plat setback of 15 feet. So that's, I'm assuming on the stakeout of the building, that's where the confusion came.
When I got the site plan and sent to surveyors, you know, we're doing multiple projects. I just don't spend it. Everything's always been correct, 100%. And that's where all this.
But it's customary, I guess, so I know you said you built multiple properties here,
Yes, ma'am.
but they're typically 20-foot setback.
That's correct, yeah. And at that time, it was probably a month, sometimes over that, for us to get a survey. So as soon as I got the site plan, we were saying it to get on the list to pin the house. And we've never had an issue like this.
Sure, I'd like to say something in reference to your question about his projects in Mexico Beach. We've worked with Mike for a long time. This is truly the first time we've had any issue with him or his company. And when I called him to tell him, hey man, the building's in the wrong place, he said exactly what he told you then. It's my fault. After he checked in, he said, I made a mistake. So that just to clarify, he does a lot of work. We're very familiar with him and his company. And this is the first issue we've ever had of any kind.
I call the inspectors a lot, just a question, if we have any, you know, any questions at all, we call them. I call them here, Gulf County. But we want to do it right the first time.
The sum of it sounds like a mistake was made, that this development order was March 11th, 22, and it clarified a 20-foot setback and just, that wasn't adhered to somehow. Is that accurate?
That's right, yes.
Okay. Is it time we bring up public comment, Doug?
Is there any questions for staff?
Now, would you folks, this is your chance to get up and say something if you'd like to testify.
Yeah.
You and the other adversely affected people.
Can I ask you something, even though I'm an
Makes so much
alternate?
sense, and I just get closer.
Well,
Ma'am, can you come up?
It seems to me like he had two different hands. I can't see that you have the total responsibility there. Because if you had a 15 and then a 20, it seems to me like,
Well, things are gonna happen on the construction side. If I went through one job without making mistakes,
yeah.
it'd be a miracle. It's gonna happen. We just correct them and go on.
But I think you're being fed two different informations.
Well, the 15 is in the plat book and then the
Yeah.
20 is LDR.
Yeah.
That's where the confusion comes in.
Yeah.
So, that's all. That's all it is.
So I don't think you're accountable.
Well, you know.
Anyway.
Ma'am, do you have another question?
Oh, my question, well, I just think this whole thing could be resolved.
Well, I mean, is anybody have any questions for him? And then if they don't,
That's done.
then it's your, if everybody's done questioning.
I have a question. So Mike, I know that Lance spoke,
Yes.
but I'm gonna ask you this myself. Are there any benefits for you personally or for the house itself for where it's sitting? Or would it have been better for you for the house to be at 20 feet?
It'd be a lot better at 20 foot. There's more parking in front.
Right,
But it's at 15, so we
Right.
have less parking.
yeah,
We'll be way better off at 20 foot.
right,
Yeah. This was definitely a mistake,
yeah,
100%. Yeah. We didn't catch it. The asphalt was gone. Nothing, no red flags was thrown up. There was no buildings besides the one at the curve. So nothing stood out. The pavilion was not built, you know.
and at the time, I'm trying to go back in my brain, but at the time you were building that house, that's about the time that there was a lot of construction going on down at the end of that road.
Yeah,
To
they
where the
started.
road wasn't like clearly defined. There was sand and debris, I guess is the best way I
Nothing
would.
but sand, yeah.
It would make the road appear to be smaller and the land to appear to be wider, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, yes.
So just by looking at it, you wouldn't actually just visually go, oh, I'm wrong.
You can't see it now, you know.
Right.
Couldn't see it then.
Any more questions of this gentleman?
I guess I'm struggling, and I shouldn't maybe, but if the setbacks are always 20 and the house would have been better at 20, why wasn't it just measured at 20? How did
We
it get
we
to
don't do the
15?
surveys. We hire the surveyors to come pin the corners of the house.
Okay.
And
Oh.
there was nothing that stood out that said, oh, this is 4 foot closer to the canal.
Okay,
It's
so the
never-
surveyors did the pinning, and then you
Yeah.
based where the pilings
The
went on their
information
pinning.
that I sent. So nothing stood out with us that something was wrong, believe me.
So the-
I would have called and we would have changed it. And
So
that's
the
an
surveyor's pins is what you
Yes,
based the, and you weren't aware the surveyor's pins were at 15 instead of 20?
Because of the information I sent.
Okay.
So then we pull our strings off of those pins, put up our battle boards, and that's how we start.
Okay,
That's
yeah, so I was
the
just like, well, it sounds like if everything's always at 20 and you preferred it at 20 and it was gonna be at 20, how did it not get measured out at 20?
That's it.
Because the surveyor pins were at 15.
Yes, ma'am.
So, there you go. There you go.
Any more questions of this gentleman? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, it's your chance to come up and give whatever testimony you want to give, if any, and it's up to you, and you folks too.
Okay, Bonnie Paulson, 118 Canal Parkway. Hi. I agree with Karen that this is gonna domino, and it's not gonna have a really great outlook unless everybody on the street gets a variance of the 15 feet, because there's still an awful lot of lots that aren't built. And I don't think money is gonna really, if they have a charge, it's gonna be really good for the people that live there anyway. I know that Drew Anthony is very upset because he had to rip off half of his deck that was just built, and it cost him $6,000 and stuff, and, you know, anyway, he's writing a letter to the mayor about that, because he would have been okay with the 15 feet, and apparently he also went through this whole process that Mike did.
Just to be clear, in your situation, you're a neighbor on the street, right?
I am, yes.
Are you, sounds like it, but are you opposed to this?
I am.
That's
I'm
right.
I'm opposed to not, to everybody.
Are you opposed to granting a variance that's requested here today?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I was refused. And I'd like to build a deck, and I can't. And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And Chuck, so, again, here in the 130 Canal, we're just a couple of lots down from 138, obviously. I think my concern, and not to put words in Bonnie's mouth, if 138 is granted, it seems clear that moving it or cutting it off apart, that it really, I don't think anyone in here would say that seems practical. It seems they certainly, I don't know what happens if they're not given the variance. They've spent time, they've spent money, everybody else's time and money here, attorneys, who knows what all. Well, you know what? We're gonna face the same thing. Because we're gonna want that variance too. Because in my mind, I've gotta prepare for it to domino to my husband and I, that it's gonna hit, and I get that the two lots are owned by the same people, and once you get a little further back, maybe it's not so bad, but you know what? Every other person that has a right to have that same variance, and at least the choice of if they go 15 or 20, wherever they want to put it, you know. So I don't want to incur, if the variance were to be granted, I'm not opposed as long as that variance is granted all the way down Canal Parkway to parties impacted. And when I say parties impacted, I'm impacted, and my husband and I. I don't want to come back up here. I don't feel I should have to pay for a permit to get the variance. I don't feel like I should have to hire an attorney to get the variance. I don't feel like it's fair for everybody's time here to do it. I don't want the time to put a packet together. I don't want all that. I shouldn't have to have that. If the variance is gonna be at the 15 feet or wherever it resides, then by God, it's 15 all the way down Canal Parkway. That's what would be fair and equitable. Especially, and I think that's probably the best arrangement for 138. They don't have to chop off the house, they don't have to move it, which has already been determined that's not possible. But, so, if that same is allotted to everybody else, I'm not opposed to it.
There's no way they can tell you that tonight.
Yeah, there's a council, I understand that. So as in part of recommendation, I think that would be one recommendation that could be given to city council if staff chose to do that. But I will be strongly opposed if it's only granted for 138 and not the rest of the street, because there is a domino effect. So, anyway.
Okay, well, thank you.
Chuck, did you have anything you want to add to that?
No, that was,
And Bonnie, I didn't want to misspeak for you.
No, that's exactly
Right.
what I couldn't articulate.
Okay, and this should not cost me one penny.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Who's next?
If there's no more testimony to be given from anyone, no more questions, then now will be the time for the general public to speak.
See how politely I waited for my turn? Okay, I did some digging.
If you would please state.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. You all know who I am. Lisa Logan, Maryland Boulevard. I did some digging back in the records. In January of 21, the variance for 118 Canal Parkway was denied. She wanted to build a deck. And the council meeting following that, it was also denied. Then in March of 21, just a couple of months later, we had the issue in Ocean Plantation where the contractor flipped the plans and built the garage on the wrong side and went into the setback. And that was approved, but at that point, Gina Johnston was the head of EPCI, and the council instructed her to put safeguards in place so that would not happen again. So, because under her description of how the setbacks were measured, there was no real safeguard. So supposedly safeguards were put in place.
Just curious, Lisa, but that was approved by the city council or it was approved by P&Z?
Approved by the
Council.
P&Z meeting and at the council meeting.
Yeah, it came from both.
41 by council. Then, in May of 21, there was a variance request for front setback encroachment. And that motion passed unanimously by the city council. But that was for a much smaller thing. It was for steps and it was around a foot. These others were around 5 feet each. So then we get October of 21. And the plans were not followed correctly and they encroached on both the front and the side setbacks. So he owned the lot next to it, and so he just replatted his lot, took care of the side setback, but the front setback was also allowed by the city council. But these were after the so-called safeguards were put into place, supposedly. I'm still confused how there's the original survey, and this might be a question for EPCI to try to explain to me because I'm not clear on it. There's the original survey where the stakes are put. Then there's supposed to be a second survey, according to Greg, and we require a second survey, and this, Mr. Jenkins asked for the clarification, but they don't get that second survey until the building is already vertical, and I thought I heard him say because it would hold up the framing crews. Is that what I heard?
You talking about what I said? So I was saying that in general, that because all these contractors, not just Mike, every contractor in the area works with these same surveyors, mostly Thurman Roddenberry and Wade Brown, every day. And like you said, there's no way to visually see it, and there was no reason for him to think it was wrong. Every contractor keeps going. And even so, it seems that I didn't know this. I didn't know that it was a couple months later and that he didn't realize he needed to order it at the time. But even if it would have been ordered, every contractor in this area has seen 100 successful projects without this issue, and they don't see any visual reason to believe that it's off. They keep going because the surveyor's a month or two out anyways. And if it's missed, it's a mistake. And in this case, it was incorrect. The survey stakeout was incorrect. And when I said that is the typical process, I didn't realize it was a month or two after the pylons were in that this survey was ordered, which is a mistake as well that Mike mentioned. But yeah, that's it. So a couple months passed, the building's still going on. Oh man, I need a survey. I realize that now. He talks to the building official. He gets a survey. There's still some time, from there. Still thinking there's no issue. I've never had an issue. I've worked with these same surveyors for 30 years, and they keep moving. And then they realize when they get the survey, here's a 4.2, 4.8 foot discrepancy that was a complete oversight and mistake.
And so let me back up. You mentioned the comment I made, so let me clarify that for you. So our paperwork says that we will receive the second survey before they go vertical. Okay, that's our requirement. However, it would be impossible for me and 10 others like me to check every single construction site every single day to make sure this is not what happens. So it is up to the contractor, and he trusts his surveyor to provide that information. Okay, so, as far as when we get it, yeah, as soon as we get it, we check it, but, we're not, I can't micromanage every construction site in the city to make sure that they're not starting to frame before I have it. So as soon as we realize that, we do address that.
Okay, thank you. So I guess my question is, at what point does the city feel there needs to be some sort of repercussion? Because this is, we're having more than one incursion in setbacks. At what point, if you can't move the building, if you can't tear off the part of the building that's in the setback, at what point is a hefty fine going to be levied on every single person who is involved in this? That's my question.
Anybody else from the general public?
All right, open it up to the council.
It's you guys. All you.
I have something I'd like to say that I think is important to discuss here is I actually believe Mike, but I'm concerned about the fact that there's a general public anger about the fact that builders seem to get a certain way down the road and then, say, mea culpa, sorry, let's ask for a variance. It happens in Gulf, it happens in Bay, and there's situations that you can drive around this area and see to this day. So, at what point do the citizens who get negatively impacted by mistakes feel that it's a fair and just system of building in this area? Because that seems to be a general point of contention with a lot of the people who live here. And that has to be from repetitive abuse of it. Now, Mike's might have done a genuine mistake, but what about when it's not? What about people who have discovered that you can come into Mexico Beach from Georgia or Alabama or wherever, do something you're not really allowed to do, and then be like, we'll just get a variance at the end. And that really frustrates other people around you. And it's unfair on every level. Specifically regarding views, which I do realize Mexico Beach at this time has not gotten vicious about how they're financially impacted by view, but as it becomes more and more densely populated, whether you have ocean glimpse, ocean view, stand on the balcony and twist over and to see a little bit of water, is going to impact what real estate values are at. And we are now talking about a longevity issue of issuing variances. We have no idea to what degree it will impact other buildings that haven't even come and applied for their permits yet or purchased their lots.
We've already moved beyond the public comment, sorry. I believe is that correct?
Yeah.
I don't have it with me, or I may. You might need to give me just a minute. One of y'all may have it. Do you have the map for Sweetwater, or not Sweetwater, the St. Joe development? Is there a map for that? Anybody got it handy?
I don't have a hand.
Oh wait, I do have it. I thought I did, but I didn't want to go show them papers.
AMAP, I don't know that it's.
Where is the road, and Mike may know this, if anybody knows it, he may know. Mike, where's the road in the parking lot that is gonna loop behind? Where's that gonna fall in relation to your house?
You can see the commercial district there.
Yeah, this right here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you go up to where 98 is, you can see where the cut through could go.
yeah.
Problem is, we don't know exactly what if it's a hotel, if it's a parking garage, we don't.
Where the street's gonna fall and everything. I gotcha. Well, without knowing that, that won't work. I'm taking my map.
We'll get you another map.
You just confiscated my map.
That's why you want to get somebody else's.
Well, I had an idea, but I don't know, without knowing exactly where that road's gonna go, I don't know if that would be an option or not.
Are there any other questions or comments from the council?
The only comment I would have, and I've just recently went through the whole building process, and at the very end, not my contractor, but I called and requested my final survey just because I had Thurman Roddenberry do work for me. And it was a very expeditious process. It took a week to get them scheduled, and I had the final survey in another week. So, yeah, I understand humans make mistakes and problems. I just don't, this is a can of worms, and I don't know where we go with this. I'm struggling with it, so I'm just saying that out loud.
So, good. I have a question that's not, it's not going to lead to a yes or no vote though, so do you want me to hold off on that question?
Yeah, go ahead with your question.
So how do other municipalities, counties, whatever, how do they handle this type of situation? Is there a significant fine as a percentage of the building cost, or what do they do?
So I can answer that one. We looked at options. We met with Mike and Lance and talked about options to see if there was any way before we got to this point, whether it was move the house, which could be significantly expensive. He owns the lot next door, working on a replat. We tried to make the front door to face the Gulf, but we have that St. Joe property for the Gulf. So he looked through every option before he got here. I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
The only one that I'm familiar with, and that was what the problem with Carly, she spoke about earlier, was with this fine process. There was nothing in our current comp plan or land development code that gives us the ability to levy a fine for this. Like a dollar figure that says it's $350 a square foot. I looked for every option for that. I am familiar with a case in Gulf County where a particular builder built something, whether it was on purpose or mistake or whatever it was. They built the house in the setback, and they charged that person, I think it was $25,000 fine to do that, and they put his license on suspension for 12 months. So if he did that again, they would revoke his right to build in Gulf County. So that's something that they had standing to make that kind of decision. We do not have that option. Based on what our land development code is, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but we looked for, I tried to come up to say, if you're building a $4 million house, what's the fine on a $4 million house that's 4 feet over into the setback? And we don't have an answer for that based on what our code says. So part of the recommendation could be going forward, which is something that we're looking at, which is to adjust the comp plan when we do some revisions to include something that will keep that from happening again. We've done the building department thing with the boundary survey. That was one. After we had that one case that was 1 foot over the line, we had a boundary survey implemented somehow. With this being in seaward of the CCCL line, the permit didn't go through this particular process, so something happened there, and he didn't get to the very final when he said he had to have a final plan, a final survey. So it was like, I hate to say the perfect storm. I mean, I do agree with the fact, I believe earlier you talked about, I'm overstepping my question, but the asphalt was gone. 3 foot of that asphalt was gone in front of his house. There was a telephone pole there. That should have been a really big clue, right? But when he did that survey, that pin marker was there, and then Willie didn't find it till the very last thing. They're ready to do a CO. He's passed every inspection, and they pull a tape measure, which, I don't know, if you looked at 15.8 feet and 20 feet from a distance, you may not be able to see that very well, like they said, but that's where it came up. And so we've been looking for options before we got to this point, but currently we do not have a system in place that allows us to levy any sort of fine. There's recommendations that you can make going forward if you wanted to see one in the future. For this one, I don't have any recommendations for you for that. It was a long answer, I apologize.
This is just me, but my concern, I totally feel for the people at 130 and on down. Canal Parkway is already a very crowded street. If we take take and put everybody at 15-foot setbacks, whether they choose to do it or they don't choose to do it, you're cutting down all those people's parking. So now you've got a big, huge house that like, how many people will your house sleep?
14 probably.
Okay. So you build five more houses on that street, because I just pulled the map. There's 5 more lots, counting the other one that Mike owns, that if all those people build a house even relatively that size or even smaller, their parking is cut way down. And then if you go around the corner where there's even less parking, that we're already having an issue with parking, that we had to make parking up there by the Welcome Center. If they take advantage of that, I mean, you're gonna cut your parking down for those houses quite a bit in my mind. So I don't know what the right answer is, but I think that the parking is something we're gonna have to take into consideration as well.
And to further add on that, anybody who is currently constructed, they don't get the opportunity to reconsider, so they get negatively impacted across the board. It's only future builds that would have a benefit of choosing a 15 or 20-foot variance.
Right, and the only one, and to speak on the domino effect, I mean, as far as the views are concerned, it's gonna be from the house that's right there by the creek back this way. I mean, once you round the bend, your view is not impacted by the setback.
I was speaking more as
Yes.
entire
Yeah.
city than I
Yeah.
was one specific
Yeah.
lot, but yeah, it's really.
Tim, did you have a question? Or comment?
I have some comments, and I think they're mostly factual based on what I've heard. So this is not addressed by the comp plan or the land development code sufficiently. I don't believe, this is not a fact, but I don't believe there's any evidence here of deception or intent to deceive by this. I think there was a mistake made, and the mistake, I believe, after listening to all this, was the record plat was given to the surveyors and then passed to the pile drivers versus what the setback requirement is. And so it was a mistake, despite all the issues that is created. I don't believe there's a known Florida statute that helps us with this. So then I ask, so what's the harm that's been done here? And so I would say the view of those houses on the Canal Parkway, we may have set a precedence for future variance requests. We do have, I'm told we have procedures in place to prevent this, although based on the development order, it looked like they were already in place. So I'm not sure if that's true or not. We are not able to recommend a fine or penalty, as I understand it, as part of this.
Not right now. We don't have that in place.
Okay. And I don't believe there's any reasonable way to adjust this setback, this front setback. That's how I see it. And so my opinion, my belief is, we're talking about just this particular lot. We're not talking about future variances. And I don't think we have any choice other than to recommend approval. Now we can make some recommendations and stuff like that, but I don't believe we really have any other choice but to recommend approval on this, despite all the issues it's created or created. That's my opinion.
One of the things is the fail-safe is not being followed. So we all saw the DO, we all saw that it said before going vertical, second survey to be submitted, but it seems that that it's normal for this area to override and ignore that to keep the flow of work going. Is that how, did I understand that?
That's what they stated.
So it's not really a fail-safe if the common builder knows we ignore and override the fail-safe.
One thing that we have learned from this, as Greg alluded to earlier, was they're pulling strings now. They're out there verifying those lines and where they're building and their setbacks more strenuously. I mean, you get caught making a mistake, you have no choice but to go forward. I mean, you think about how many houses have been built here in Mexico Beach, and we haven't had that. One since I've been here, and it's a big one. It's 4 feet. So Greg has said that they're doing everything to go forward, but the onus does go on the builder at times. So that's why I was saying some recommendations down the road, alluding to fines and.
Seems like the surveyor or the lack of surveyors available to do the surveys has created, just been ignoring this fail-safe. So.
But you heard Mike, the owner, he gave the wrong set of plans to the surveyor to mark the stakes. And then he drove the piles himself. with his company based off those stakes. So he owned it. Generally, somebody comes in and starts blaming everybody in the room. This guy did not do that.
Agreed.
Just have to say that.
So,
Yeah.
Tim, you had an opinion, you want to put that in the form of a motion?
Well, is everybody done talking? And if they are,
Are y'all gonna cover the standards of review? I don't know if I can say that. Item 2, is that part of, like, when y'all look at the standards of review for your variance? Item 2, the applicant must clearly demonstrate and show that the hardship is unique to the applicant and the applicant's property and is not suffered by adjacent or adjacent or nearby property owners or the general public. That's item 2 on E. I was just kind of expecting y'all to look at section E,
That's a good point.
please.
I believe Carly addressed
Can I
earlier.
address
She
that?
can
Yes.
Right, so at one point, I wasn't able to locate when it was, but at one point, this was in your land development code. So back then, when this was in there, that would mean that you'd use these standards for review to evaluate this application. However, they're no longer in the land development code, so they're
So why are they in this packet tonight?
because this is an application that was created when it was in the land development code. It's the only variance application the city has at this time.
It's not in the land development code right now.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I hope that it's gonna be looked at. I mean, it should, I don't know why it's not in there, but it's in this packet and it's dated May 11 of 23, and that is
That was part of the results from the review that we were going to, hope the direction would be from
It should
council
be looked
review
at.
to look at and move forward for additional review for the comp plan.
so perhaps part of our motion would include a recommendation maybe to include these and an update to the comp plan. I haven't looked at them. But, you know, if that's something you want to consider. I'm ready to make a motion. I just don't know if everybody's ready to have a motion.
I'm not gonna say something.
Okay,
That's up to you. It's up to you, Chairman.
please come and make a very brief comment.
Lisa Logan, Maryland Boulevard. Y'all need to find out where those variance requirements went, because they have been the standard that we have used for all of these that have been brought up. I don't know why y'all can't find them in the comp plan or the LDR, but you need to find out where they are and make sure that they are back, because that is what we have always used and continue to use. Some of y'all sitting up here know that that is the standard that we use. So find out where they've been.
Thank you.
Anyway,
It's a nice safeguard. Whoever came up with it, it's great.
Thank you. Go ahead.
okay, so point of order, I would just request, this is our time as a board, would we stop getting interruptions from the participants in the audience? Thank you. So I'm ready to make a motion. I don't know if there's any more discussion needed.
Doesn't sound like there's any more discussion.
Okay, so I make a motion to recommend approval of the requested front setback variance for a setback of 15.8 feet, with a recommendation to the council to look at the standards of review that we think were in the previous LDR to be added.
Okay. We have a motion for approval, given that we make a recommendation to the city council to add back the standards of review. Is that correct?
Yes.
Everyone's heard the motion. Is there a second? I'll second it. We have a motion, we have a second. I'd like to call for a vote.
Mr. Durkins?
No.
Mr. Elzey?
Yes.
Mr. Kerrigan?
No.
Mr. Linderman?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
No.
Pardon me.
And keep in mind that we are an advisory council. Of course, this goes to the city council next. Being no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
What, excuse me, you recommended, your motion was to recommend to approve.
It was.
correct? That was denied. So we need another motion.
Oh,
To disapprove?
I mean, that's,
We have to have some.
gotta make a
direction.
decision one way or the other.
I make a motion to not approve the variance and to add back the standards of review.
Sorry. I'll second it.
Okay. Call for another vote.
Yep.
Mr. Jerkins,
Yes.
Mr. Elzey,
No.
Mr. Kerrigan,
Yes.
Mr. Linderman,
No.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Do we have what we need there?
I believe you do.
Clint, does he need to give a reason why he's denying it?
Oh,
Yes.
yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's a late night for me.
That's all right.
From-
You mentioned that earlier, I completely forgot about it. My primary reason is I believe that it's wholly unfair to the community at large, and as it is regarding all future builds. I understand this was a one-time mistake, but yes, it sets a precedent, thank you.
And they didn't meet the setback.
And they did not meet the setback requirement and failed to follow the safeguard.
I think we should go through it again just to make, just to be.
Okay.
So that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Jerkins,
Yes.
Mr. Elzey,
No.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Yes.
Mr. Linderman,
No.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
I believe we're done.
Have what we need.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Not easy either way.
Get out of here. You can make her a copy.
Been on a roll. Is it still up? I don't even know. Julie, you need, or Tammy, you need a copy of this.